Why was everyone laughing when the helicopter lifted off, leaving her in the dust? The wind was biting sharp with iron and fuel. The Mi-8 transport rose into the bruised purple sky, its blades cutting the silence of the Kyrgyz highlands like a curse. When the sound faded, what remained was the cold hum of emptiness, and one woman standing alone on a cracked helipad. Anna Petrova, a duffel bag at her boots, no greeting party, no salutes, just wind and the low metallic creak of the outpost's wire fences breathing with the mountain air. The compound was ugly, scarred like a veteran who'd survived one too many wars. Triple-layered concertina wire surrounded a scatter of prefab buildings, each crouched low under a sky bruised with dusk. Rusted floodlights drooped like dying sunflowers. Thermal cameras stared blankly into nothing. Everything looked tired. Her boots echoed once on the concrete. She scanned everything in a single calm glance, her eyes flicking from the sagging wire to the half-buried sensor poles, to the western wall where the ground sloped down into a dark ravine. Her mind measured distances, lines of sight, cover zones. Every step, every angle, every gap. Adequate but lazy. The main door to the command center hissed open behind her, spilling yellow light and the sound of male laughter into the evening air. 3 men walked out swagger first, respect nowhere. The one in front was built like a bull, his shoulders filling the doorway. Shaved head, beard like steel wool, and a name tag that read Rhino. His voice was a low, mocking grunt. "Corporate sent you." His eyes dragged over her, slow and insulting, boots to face, like he was evaluating a civilian inconvenience instead of a professional. They said a specialist, didn't say it was take your daughter to work day. The other 2 laughed, one wiry, all twitch and sharp teeth, the other young and overeager, following the pack's rhythm. Anna didn't answer. She simply met Rhino's stare, not defiant, not nervous, just there, flat, unblinking gray eyes that gave away nothing. Silence. It stretched, long enough for him to shift, uncomfortable. She didn't look away. He coughed. "Packages inside. Thorne wants a word." He turned his back and walked off, assuming she'd follow. She did, but her gait was measured, deliberate. The kind of walk that didn't chase, didn't obey, it simply moved forward. Inside, the command center reeked of stale coffee, sweat, and burnt circuits. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in the sick color of old bones. A topographic map covered the central table, scarred with cigarette burns and littered with spent casings being used as makeshift markers. At the head of the table stood a man who didn't need to announce he was in charge. Marcus Thorne, mid-50s, lean, steel-gray hair cropped short, and eyes so pale they looked almost colorless. A former SAS major, now running this private contract for a mining conglomerate that cared more about assets than people. He didn't look up. "Petrova," he said, voice crisp with a British edge. "Here." The single word was quiet, but it carried. He finally looked. His eyes narrowed slightly, confusion, then irritation. She wasn't what he'd expected. Not armored, not decorated, no visible weapon. Her field jacket was worn, plain. Her hair tied back, practical. She looked like a geologist, not an operative. "I was expecting someone with a different resume," he said. "My men are former special operations, rangers, paras, spetsnaz. They know this terrain. They understand risk." "I understand," she said softly. Rhino snorted. "She understands, step 1, boss." Thorne didn't bother turning. A glance silenced Rhino, but not the tension. He gestured at the empty chair. "Corporate thinks we need an outside eye for our asset transfer. I disagree. My protocols are solid, but the client gets what they pay for." He pointed to the map. "The asset is Dr. Aries Thorne, my brother. He holds proprietary seismic data worth a fortune. Local insurgents call themselves the Tehran Freedom Brigade. Ragtag fighters, motivated but unsophisticated. If they try a frontal assault, they'll die on the wire. His voice dripped confidence, the kind that only exists in men who haven't yet been proven wrong. Anna's eyes traced the map, the dry riverbeds, the narrow ravines leading straight toward the western wall. She saw them instantly, natural cover, perfect avenues of approach. "You have listening posts in those wadis?" she asked. Thorne's jaw tightened. "We run drone surveillance twice a day. The ground's unstable for permanent ops, too risky." "The drones fly a predictable route," she said, tone flat. "They fly the most efficient route for full coverage," he snapped. "Predictable is inefficient," she replied. The sentence landed like a knife, not loud but sharp. Rhino's smirk widened. "Listen to her boss, Sun Tzu in a ponytail." Thorne's gaze iced over. "Your job, Miss Petrova, is to observe. Write a report for the suits in Geneva. Don't interfere. Don't distract my men. Find a corner and stay out of the way. Clear." Anna nodded once. Clear. She walked to the chair, placed her duffel beside it, and sat. She didn't take notes, didn't open a laptop, just watched, hands folded, expression unreadable. The room buzzed with male confidence, loud, restless, performative. She was the silence among them, and silence, when wielded right, could unnerve even the loudest man in the room. They looked at her and saw nothing, a bureaucratic checkbox, a corporate observer. They didn't see what lay beneath that collar, the faint, dark lines of a trident tattoo just below her left ear. Small, intricate, easy to miss. A warning note one recognized. The next day bled into routine. The air stung with dust and disinterest. The men ignored her. She didn't mind. At dawn, she walked the perimeter, measuring, counting, memorizing. At dusk, she did it again. The guards nodded, half-interested, their breath steaming in the cold. She noticed their blind spots, the sagging wire on the western fence, the tower guard who always looked down at his thermos instead of the horizon, the blind angle under the floodlights. When Thorne called a briefing the next morning, Anna stood quietly at the back. "The transfer in 48 hours, Thorne said. 2 armored SUVs, 12 clicks to the airstrip. We go fast and hard, overwhelming force." He slapped the map like punctuation. "They won't know what hit them." The room hummed with confidence. Then her voice, calm, uninvited. "They'll be waiting on the road." Heads turned. Thorne blinked. "Excuse me." "It's the only route. 2 kilometers out the valley narrows, perfect kill box. Rockslide, IED, ambush, classic L-shape. You drive straight into it." Rhino chuckled too loud. "She's seen a movie. Cute. We've got jammers and a 50 cal. Let them try." Anna didn't look at him. Her eyes were locked on Thorne. "That won't be their main attack. It's a feint. They'll hit the convoy to draw your best men out. While you're gone, a smaller, more skilled team breaches the western wall, the one with the sagging wire." The room went quiet. "They're not after your convoy. They're after your data. The doctor is just the key to unlock it." Thorne stared at her, a mixture of disbelief and anger. The audacity of this woman, challenging his authority in his own room. "Your speculation is noted, Miss Petrova," he said, voice like gravel. "Convoy rolls at 600. You will remain in the command center. That's an order." Anna's reply was a simple nod. "Understood." She sat back down, silent. The warning had been given. Whether they listened was no longer her burden. The men laughed again, the same laughter as before, only now it was thinner, forced. Outside, the wind howled across the wire. Inside, she began her quiet preparations. She stretched her muscles, slow, deliberate, feeling the coil of tension settle into focus. She ate a protein bar, drank water, checked her blade. When it came, she would be ready. It began not with an explosion, but with a whisper. "Static." At 6:15, Jax, the youngest comms tech, frowned at his monitor. "Losing the drone feed," he muttered. "Heavy interference." Anna didn't look up. She sat sharpening her knife, the soft scrape of steel on stone steady and calm. "Probably just canyon walls," one guard mumbled. "No," Jax said, typing faster. "It's wide-spectrum jamming, military grade. I'm losing everything: voice, data, video." The screen went white with static. Then one red word blinked on the display. "No signal." The room froze. Anna set down her knife. The silence thickened. Then came the first sound, a single crack. Suppressed. Clean. Followed by a dull, heavy thud as a bullet punched through the wall, ripping through a server rack in a shower of sparks. The lights flickered, died, and came back under backup power, red strobes flashing like warning beacons in a nightmare. Outside, gunfire, controlled, professional. "Contact west," a voice screamed over the radio. "They're already at the wire." Anna was already moving. "Get away from the console," she said sharply to Jax. "They know we're here." "But—" "Move." The door rattled under the first impact. Anna kicked open the emergency locker, grabbed 2 carbines, tossed one to the kid. "You know how to shoot." He nodded shakily. "Good enough. Stay behind me, don't freeze." Cutler, the guard by the door, shouted. Thorne's orders were to hold. "Thorne's orders just got men killed," she snapped. "We move now." Another round hit the wall. A server burst into flame. She scanned the room, eyes flicking toward the back wall. The drywall was thin. She tore a fire extinguisher from its mount and rammed it into the wall between 2 steel studs. Once. Twice. On the third strike, the wall gave. Behind it, the thin metal shell of the building. She kicked it out, a jagged hole. Cold air rushed in. "What the hell are you doing?" Cutler yelled. "Making a way out." Outside, she could hear the enemy, boots crunching gravel, orders whispered in Pashto. "They're expecting us to stay and die here. We're not." She looked at them once. "Your choice." Cutler stared at the bullet-riddled main door, then at the dark hole in the wall. He didn't argue again. They slipped into the night, shadows among firelight. The cold hit them like truth. Somewhere behind, a tower guard screamed into the radio before going silent. The attack had begun. And as they moved, Anna's voice whispered in her own mind, steady, familiar. They laughed, they always do, until the silence answers back. The cold bit deeper once they were outside. The night air smelled of cordite, smoke, and dust, the familiar scent of something that should never have become familiar. The red strobe from the damaged command center pulsed behind them, washing the yard in flashes of blood-colored light. Anna moved first, low, fast, silent. The gravel didn't crunch under her boots. It shifted like it knew her weight. Jax followed, breathing hard, his rifle trembling in his hands. Cutler stumbled behind them, his nerves unraveling. "Where are we going?" he hissed. "Geolab," Anna whispered, not slowing. "That's where the asset is. That's what they're here for." They kept to the shadows, using the gaps between the storage crates and the empty fuel drums as cover. The compound looked deserted, but it was. Somewhere in the dark, trained men were moving, methodical, patient. The kind of patience that kills. The gunfire from the perimeter was getting closer now, short, controlled bursts. No panic, no chaos. Whoever was attacking, they were good. Too good for local insurgents. Anna's gut tightened. The enemy had a plan, and the defenders, those who'd laughed at her warnings, were reacting exactly as she'd predicted. Scattered, confused, fighting the wrong war. She reached the edge of the open service yard and stopped, raising a clenched fist. Jax and Cutler froze behind her. Ahead, across 50 meters of open ground, the lab sat, a squat concrete block with no windows, built for containment, not survival. Between them, open space littered with metal drums and crates, and a dozen invisible kill angles. Cutler's whisper shook. "We can't cross that, the sniper." "He's focused on the towers," Anna said quietly. "Not here, not yet." "How do you know?" Jax whispered. She looked at him, and for the first time he saw something human in her eyes. Not arrogance, not certainty, just cold experience. "Because if I were him," she said, "I'd be watching the towers." Then she pointed to a broken line of large, empty water conduits stacked on the ground, forming a jagged snake of steel halfway across the yard. "We use those, stay low, move when I move." Before they could argue, she was gone. The sound of her movement was nothing, not even a whisper. She glided through darkness, a shape the night accepted. When she reached the first pipe, she stopped, absolutely still. 10 seconds of silence. Then she gave a low, two-toned whistle, the call of a mountain bird. Jax and Cutler scrambled after her, far louder, clumsy. Their boots scraped, their breath loud enough to betray them. Anna didn't scold. She just waited until they reached her side. Her eyes scanned ahead, the next stretch of open ground. No cover, just the lab 50 meters away. "When I move," she said softly, "you fire, don't aim, just make noise, look like you mean it." Cutler's hand shook. "He'll see us." "He'll see me," Anna said. "That's the point." She took a breath. 3, 2, 1. She exploded from cover, not running, not sprinting, flowing. Her body low, her steps short and fast. The rhythm was perfect, each motion designed by years of instinct and pain. Behind her, Jax and Cutler opened fire, their muzzle flashes lighting the night like brief, terrified flares. A single round cracked from the ridge, a suppressed, heavy-caliber sound that tore through the air like a whip. It hit the dirt inches behind her boots, spraying grit into her legs. She didn't slow. Her hand slapped the keypad beside the lab door. "Dr. Thorne," she shouted, "open up." The intercom crackled, a panicked male voice. Who is this? What's happening?" "Petrova, corporate security. You've got 10 seconds before they breach this compound. Open the door or you die out here." Another shot whistled past, close enough to part her hair with its pressure. The lock buzzed, the steel door swung inward. Anna dove inside, rolled to her feet, rifle up. "Inside," she barked. Jax and Cutler ran, bullets chasing them. Dust kicked up around their legs. They tumbled through the door, and Anna slammed it shut, locking the bolts, one by one, until the echo of each click sounded like salvation. Silence. The lab was blinding white, sterile, humming with equipment. Monitors displayed seismic data in endless streams of code. Dr. Aries Thorne, thin, pale, shaking, stood in the center. "They're killing everyone," he stammered. Anna scanned the room. "Not everyone." She crossed to a steel workbench, tested its weight. "You two," she pointed to Jax and Cutler, "move this against the door." They hesitated for a fraction of a second, then obeyed. The heavy table screeched across the tile. The pounding started almost immediately. The attackers were outside, the rhythmic clang of a breaching ram. Boom! The wall shook. Boom! Dust fell from the ceiling. Aries flinched with every hit. "They'll get through," he gasped. Anna didn't look at him. Her eyes had found something on a side rack, 2 compressed nitrogen canisters. She grabbed them, already building a plan in her head. "Jax," she said, "give me your headset." He blinked. "What?" "Just do it." He tore it off and handed it to her. She taped the microphone switch down, attached it to one of the canisters, wedged it behind the workbench, nozzle aimed chest-high toward the door. The setup looked improvised, but every movement she made had the weight of long practice. "What is that?" Aries asked, his voice trembling. "A surprise," Anna said. She turned to Jax. "You said you worked comms. Can you trigger this building's fire suppression system manually?" I think so. When I say go, flood it." The breaching ram hit again, harder. The frame was bending. Cutler was crouched behind the table, rifle trembling in his grip. "They'll be through any second." Anna stood still, hands resting lightly on her rifle. The room was shaking, red lights flashing. She looked calm, but her breath was slow, measured, her heartbeat steady. Fear existed, she just didn't let it lead. The final hit tore the door off its hinges. Two men stormed in black tactical gear, visors, rifles raised. "Now," Anna shouted. Jack slammed his hand down on the terminal. The lab hissed, nozzles opening. Flooding the air with thick, white CO2, the temperature dropped instantly, the world disappearing into fog. The attackers hesitated just long enough. Anna flicked the radio switch on the headset taped to the nitrogen tank. The valve screamed open. A jet of freezing vapor exploded into the face of the first man. The effect was instant. His visor crystallized, his skin blackened, his body froze mid-motion. No scream, just the sound of a man turning to glass. His partner jerked his rifle up, blind, firing wildly. Anna moved through the fog like it was her element. She didn't shoot, she struck. The butt of her rifle slammed into his jaw. He reeled, she stepped in, drew her knife and slid it under his arm. The motion was clean, precise. The man dropped, clutching at his side, confusion in his eyes even as the light left them. Two bodies fell. The fog thickened again, silence returned. Jax's voice broke it, trembling. What just happened?" Anna didn't answer. She crouched, retrieved the fallen man's rifle and AK-105, checked the chamber, the sights. Clean, well-maintained. She slung it over her shoulder. The radio on the dead man's vest crackled. "Viper team, report status." Anna pressed the transmit button. Her voice dropped an octave, calm, neutral, perfect mimicry. "Viper 1 down, hallway clear." A pause, then, "Copy, moving to secure." She bought seconds. "Get ready," she said softly. Cutler and Jax aimed their weapons at the door, eyes wide with fear. Ares crouched under a desk, trembling. Anna positioned herself by the wall beside the entrance, AK raised. The next intruder appeared in the doorway, cautious, checking angles. His hesitation killed him. 2 shots, tight grouping, center mass. He stumbled back into the hallway and fell. Then came the storm. Gunfire erupted, shredding the doorway. Concrete dust filled the air. Jax and Cutler fired back, wild and desperate. Anna moved low, reloading smoothly, never wasting a round. They were pinned, outnumbered. She crawled to the medical kit, ripped it open, grabbed gauze and a small bottle of alcohol. "What are you doing?" Jax yelled. "Changing the math." She found a glass specimen bottle, stuffed the gauze inside, poured the alcohol and lit it with a lighter. A crude firebomb. "When I throw this," she said, "trigger the system again. CO2 will kill the flames, but I need the smoke." She hurled the bottle into the hallway. The explosion was small but bright, a bloom of fire that filled the corridor. "Now!" Jax hit the key, the alarm screamed, gas hissed, smoke met fog and the world turned white again. Anna stepped into it. Her silhouette flashed between muzzle bursts, 1, 2, 3, each precise, controlled. Her rhythm was terrifying. She didn't fire in panic. She moved with intent, like music composed in violence. When it was over, the only sound left was the hiss of CO2 fatting. 6 bodies lay in the hall. Jax's hands shook as he lowered his weapon. Cutler exhaled, the sound breaking like glass. Anna stood in the center of the chaos, calm, expression unreadable, her neck exposed where her jacket had torn. The emergency lights flickered, catching the ink on her skin. A trident, small, sharp, impossible. Jax froze, Cutler stared. Deacon, one of the convoy survivors, burst into the corridor, limping, face bloodied. He stopped dead when he saw it. "Trident," he whispered. The word hit the room like a confession. Rhino appeared behind him, bruised, bleeding. His smirk was gone. Marcus Thorne came last. His eyes followed theirs and found the mark. He stopped breathing for a full second. The seal insignia, the sacred one. He'd seen it on legends, never on a woman, never here. Silence thickened until even the machine seemed to stop humming. Every joke, every smirk, every word of dismissal came back to haunt them all at once. They hadn't been mocking a corporate observer. They'd been mocking a ghost from the wars they told stories about. The woman who had saved them, who had seen the ambush before it happened, who fought alone when they froze, had worn the trident. And the shame in the room was heavier than the silence. Anna didn't look at them. She just started reloading her rifle. There was still a sniper out there. The war wasn't finished. But the laughter, that was dead. The silence after the gunfire felt heavier than the fight itself. The lab's emergency lights blinked weakly, painting the dead in slow flashes of red and white. The air stank of ozone, CO2, and fear. Jax was shaking. Cutler stared at the floor, hands trembling over his rifle. Dr. Aries Thorne was sobbing quietly under the desk, his mind cracking under the reality of violence. Only Anna stood still, breathing slow, measured, her eyes distant but alert. The rhythm of her heartbeat hadn't changed. She'd been here before. Too many times. Deacon leaned against the ruined doorframe, blood drying on his cheek. He had seen death before, but not like this, not with such precision. His eyes drifted back to the tattoo on her neck, the small, impossible mark that no one could earn by accident. Rhino came limping into the lab, his arm in a makeshift sling. His usual swagger was gone. "Jesus," he whispered, looking at the corridor full of bodies. "You did this." Anna didn't answer. She was reassembling her rifle, checking the bolt, cleaning it with a cloth from her duffel. The movement was ritual, calm, practiced, exact. Marcus Thorne entered last. The man who had laughed at her, dismissed her, silenced her. His once imposing posture now seemed smaller under the weight of realization. He took in the scene, the corpses, the shattered equipment, the scorched floor. Then his gaze settled on Anna. His voice, when it came, was stripped of command. "What's the play, consultant?" He said the last word differently now. Softer, respectful, maybe even reverent. Anna looked up. Her eyes met his without emotion. "The sniper," she said. "He's not part of the breach team, he's Overwatch, and he's still out there." Thorne frowned. "You think one man did this much damage?" Anna shook her head. "Two. A sniper and his spotter. The assault team was just the hand. They're the eyes. They guided every strike, comms tower, generators, defenses. They knew exactly where to hit." Rhino rubbed his face, eyes darting nervously to the shattered walls. "He's got the high ground, probably the northwest ridge. We go out there, he picks us off like flies." Anna didn't look at him. "We won't go to him." She turned to Dr. Thorne. "Your seismic scanners, what's their range?" He blinked, confused. "The portable units, a kilometer maybe, depends on rock density." "Why?" "Can you recalibrate one to detect microvibrations, human heartbeats, the recoil of a rifle?" His eyes widened. "That's possible, imprecise but possible. I'd need power and open line in a few minutes." "Do it." Her voice was quiet but absolute, the tone of someone used to being obeyed. Thorne, the commander, watched his younger brother scurry to the console, plugging in cables, typing with shaking fingers. Anna knelt beside one of the dead attackers. She stripped the body of useful gear, a radio, spare mags, a combat knife. She worked with mechanical calm. Deacon watched her, still in disbelief. "That tattoo, it's real, isn't it?" Anna didn't look up. "Real enough." "How?" His voice cracked with the weight of the question. "They don't, there's never been." She finally met his eyes. "Never been one like me." He swallowed hard. Anna slid a new magazine into her rifle. Maybe that's why they stopped looking. She rose, the AK slung over her shoulder, her face illuminated by the flickering red lights. The room fell into a hush. For the first time since this mission began, every man in that lab felt something different toward her. Not curiosity, not skepticism. Respect. And maybe guilt. Ares called out from the terminal. I've got partial power. I can rewire the sensors. It'll take a few minutes. Do it, Anna said again. She turned to the remaining mercenaries, Rhino, Deacon, Cutler, Jax, for men who hours ago wouldn't have taken her order to hand them a canteen. Now they stood waiting for her word. Set perimeter around the lab. 2 outside, 2 inside. Watch the western and northern flanks. No flashlights, no talking. They're not gone yet. Rhino hesitated. You think they'll come again? Anna's voice was calm. They didn't fail the mission. They failed the breach. There's a difference. He didn't argue. They moved, quietly, efficiently, like soldiers again, not contractors chasing paychecks. Marcus Thorne remained by the map table, staring at her like he was seeing his own obsolescence in real time. She hadn't barked orders, she hadn't yelled, she simply spoke, and the men followed. That was leadership, the kind that doesn't ask for loyalty, it earns it. In the background, Ares worked feverishly. Wires hummed, screens flickered. I'm rerouting the ground-penetrating radar through a biometric filter, he muttered. Should pick up anything denser than bedrock, heartbeats, maybe even movement. Anna nodded, good. She stripped the scope from one of the enemy rifles, a high-end night optic, and began mounting it onto the .338 Lapua she'd retrieved from a fallen tower guard. Her hands moved with the precision of a craftsman assembling an instrument, not a weapon. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, as if she were talking to herself. They think they're the hunters. The computer beeped. Ares looked up, got something. Everyone turned. On the monitor, a 3-dimensional scan of the surrounding terrain pulsed in shades of green and amber. Most of it was noise, static vibrations from wind and shifting rock. But one faint flicker pulsed steadily on the northwest ridge. 2 signatures, rhythmic. Heartbeats. There, Anna said, Sector 49er. Ares zoomed in. Range about 800 meters, rough terrain but good sightlines. Rhino frowned. That ridge is suicide to climb before dawn. They'll see you coming a mile off. Anna stood. Her shadow stretched long across the lab floor. I'm not climbing, she said. I'm hunting. Thorne stepped forward. You're going after them alone. Yes. You won't make it 200 meters. Anna's eyes met his. You already didn't. He had no answer. She grabbed a handful of spare magazines, a canteen, and slung the heavy rifle over her back. Then she turned to Jax. If comms come back online, you don't transmit. Radio silence. No lights. No noise. You move only if they breach again. He nodded, still pale, still shaken. Rhino stepped into her path, his voice low. Petrova, wait. She stopped. He looked at her, the same man who'd mocked her on the helipad. Now his eyes carried shame. What I said before about women not belonging here, he swallowed. I was wrong. Anna looked at him for a long moment. She didn't forgive him. She didn't need to. She just nodded once, stay alive. Then she turned and walked toward the hole in the command center wall she had created earlier. Her own exit, her own path. The cold wind met her like an old friend. The men watched her disappear into the pre-dawn dark, the heavy rifle glinting once before vanishing. No one spoke. Not even Thorne. The mountains of Kiegas were quiet again, too quiet. The fires from the compound burned low, their smoke curling up into the dim blue of early dawn. Anna moved like the night itself, silent, patient. Her breath fogged briefly, then vanished. The world was reduced to pulse and motion. The crunch of stone under her boots, the metallic weight of the rifle, the distant drip of meltwater somewhere in the rocks. She moved uphill, keeping to the shadows, her senses spread wide. Every shift of air, every ripple of sound carried meaning. The ridge was steep, littered with loose shale. She moved on all fours when she had to, keeping her body low. The rifle stayed strapped across her back, her knife ready in her hand. Halfway up she paused. Listened. Their faint, almost lost in the wind, the soft crack of a rifle bolt sliding into battery. She froze, counted the echo, judged the distance. 200 meters, slightly west. They were watching the compound, waiting for movement, unaware the movement was coming for them. Anna dropped low, crawling the rest of the way. Her elbows bled against the rock. She didn't feel it. She reached the ridge crest just as the first sunlight touched the peaks. The sniper's position was clever, camouflaged under a rock overhang. A matte black rifle rested on a bipod. Next to him, the spotter crouched, scanning with binoculars. Both wore balaclavas, their focus entirely downrange. She watched them for a full minute, patient, breathing slow, heart a steady drum. When she moved, it was with quiet precision. The knife went first, a flash of silver that caught the wind and ended the spotter's sound mid-breath. A single wet gasp. The sniper turned too late. Anna's rifle came up in one motion, one shot. It ended. The echo rolled down the valley like thunder. Silence followed. Anna exhaled long and even. She walked to the sniper's body, checked for life, found none. Then she reached for the dog tags, cold metal, stamped names she didn't recognize. She pocketed them. From the sniper's pack, she retrieved a small, weathered notebook, coordinates, sketches, radio frequencies, evidence. She took that too. The sun climbed higher, washing the ridge in light. The wind picked up. She stood there for a while, looking down at the smoking compound, the men waiting for her return. For a moment she allowed herself to feel something, not pride, not victory, just release. The laughter was gone now, the mockery, the need to prove anything. They had laughed because they couldn't understand what they were looking at. Now they did. She started walking back, slow, steady, silent. Behind her, the wind whispered through the rocks, carrying away the last echoes of the night. The first light of morning painted the mountains gold. The air was thin, cold, almost clean, as if the night's violence hadn't just happened. Smoke still curled from the broken structures below, twisting upward in slow ribbons. The compound looked smaller from the ridge, fragile, human. Anna adjusted the rifle on her shoulder and began the descent. The climb down was slow, every step deliberate, every sound swallowed by the wind. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a calm emptiness. It wasn't peace. Peace had a softness to it. This was something else, something hollow and ancient, carved by too many years of doing what others couldn't. Halfway down, she paused. The ridge behind her was silent now. No movement, no threat, just two still bodies in the sun, their purpose spent. She didn't look back. Some debts didn't need to be paid twice. By the time she reached the valley floor, the compound had come into full view, a scar of concrete and steel against the brown of the earth. The wind carried faint voices now, tired, raw, human. When she reached the gate, Deacon was waiting. His rifle hung loosely at his side, eyes red from exhaustion. For a moment he just stared. Then, without a word, he opened the gate. The others were gathered inside, Rhino, Jax, Cutler, and Thorn. Their faces were smeared with dirt and smoke, but their eyes were alive, waiting, uncertain. No one spoke when she entered. She walked through the yard, past the twisted remains of the comms tower, past the shattered vehicles, past the places where men had died. The silence of her steps said more than words ever could. They watched her move, steady, straight-backed, her expression unreadable. No victory in her eyes, no pride. Only completion. Inside the command center, the air was heavy with the smell of burnt electronics. The main table was cracked, maps half covered in soot. Thorn stood near the far wall, one hand braced against the metal, as if holding himself upright. He turned when she entered. "Is it done?" he asked quietly. Anna reached into her pocket, pulled out 2 items, and tossed them onto the table. 2 dog tags, 1 spotter's notebook. They landed with a metallic click that echoed in the room. Thorne stared at them, then at her. His face, once confident, commanding, was now just tired, human. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then stopped. Words wouldn't do here. Rhino stepped forward, his arms still bound in the crude sling. His voice was low, rough. "You took them both out." Anna nodded once. "How?" She met his gaze, quietly. The answer was simple, final. The silence stretched. No one dared fill it. Even Jax, the youngest, who'd been jittering since the start, now stood still, watching her like a man seeing something holy and terrifying at once. Marcus Thorne finally exhaled. "The extraction chopper will be here in 2 hours, he said, his voice fragile under the weight of it all. "Corporate wants a full debrief. They'll expect you to write it." "You can write it," Anna said, walking past him. "Tell them their security was inadequate." She stopped by the water cooler, filled her canteen, drank, then set it down with quiet precision. No one moved, no one even breathed too loudly. Respect didn't have to be demanded. It just filled the room and stayed there. Rhino rubbed the back of his neck. "Petrova," he hesitated, searching for something to say, some way to balance the scales. "I." She looked at him. It wasn't a glare or judgment or pity, just a look that said, "I've heard every version of that apology before." He lowered his eyes. "Thank you," he managed. Anna said nothing. She walked past him, through the doorway and out onto the helipad. The same spot where this had all begun. The sun had fully risen now, turning the dust in the air to gold. The mountains stretched endlessly on every side, vast, uncaring, ancient. She sat down on the edge of the pad, laid her rifle beside her, and pulled out her small kit, a rag, a bottle of oil, the knife she'd carried since her first deployment. She began to clean it, slow, methodical, each stroke as precise as a breath. It wasn't about the blade. It never had been. It was about the ritual, the act of making something sharp again after it had done its job. Behind her she heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate. "Thorne." He stopped a few feet away, unsure how close he was allowed. He held a dented metal mug, steam curling from it. "Coffee?" he said simply. Anna glanced up. She took it, her fingers brushing his for a second. "Thanks." They stood in silence. The wind moved across the plateau, tugging at the torn flag over the compound. Somewhere far below, a vehicle engine tried and failed to start, a broken sound in a broken place. Thorne finally spoke. "You were right about everything." Anna didn't look up from her knife. "That's not the point." "What is then?" She turned the blade, watching the light catch on its edge. "You learn more from being wrong." He took a long breath. "I thought I'd seen everything. I thought war was predictable, just equations and rules. You don't fit the equations." Anna smiled faintly, not amusement, just understanding. "War isn't predictable. People are. That's what gets them killed." He nodded slowly. Then, after a long pause, he asked the question that had been burning in all of them since the night began. "Why are you here, Petrova, with us? You could have gone anywhere, done anything." She stopped cleaning the knife. The question lingered between them. Her voice, when it came, was soft. "Because I needed to see if I still could." Thorne frowned slightly. "Still could what?" "Care." She said it quietly, but the word hit like a shot. Thorne looked at her, his face softening in a way that seemed impossible hours ago. He understood, not all of it, but enough. The way soldiers sometimes stop feeling, how death becomes a number, how survival becomes a reflex instead of a reason. Anna had come here not for money, not for orders, but to find out if she could still choose something other than survival. And she had, in a way that no one else in that compound ever would. The distant thump of helicopter rotors began to roll across the mountains, faint at first, then growing, echoing through the air like the return of something inevitable. Extraction. The men below began to move again, packing, checking weapons, counting what was left. Anna stood, slipping her knife back into its sheath. She looked at Thorn. "This place," she said quietly, "will heal or it won't. Either way, it's over." He nodded. "You'll report back to Geneva." She shook her head. "I'll disappear." "You can't just walk away." "I always do." There was no arrogance in her tone, just a statement of fact. The helicopter appeared over the ridge, small against the vast sky, sunlight flashing off its rotors. The wind from its descent stirred the dust around them, just like it had when she first arrived. It was a circle closing. The others gathered on the helipad, silent, solemn. No jokes this time, no sideways glances. When the chopper touched down, Thorn turned to her. "You saved us." Anna's eyes stayed on the horizon. "No, I reminded you what we're supposed to be." The words hung there, simple, final. She picked up her duffel, slung it over her shoulder, and walked toward the helicopter. At the edge of the pad, she stopped and looked back one last time. Rhino stood beside Jax and Deacon, all of them watching her with the quiet awe reserved for myths and regrets. Thorn stood a few steps behind them, the morning sun outlining him in gold. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. Anna stepped into the chopper, the door sliding shut with a hiss. The rotors thundered, drowning out everything. As the helicopter lifted off, dust rose in swirling clouds, wrapping the compound in a golden haze. From above, it looked peaceful, as if nothing had happened at all. Anna watched it fade beneath her, then turned her gaze toward the endless mountains ahead. Her reflection in the window was faint, ghost-like. The trident on her neck caught the light for just a second before the shadow swallowed it. She closed her eyes. The sound of the blades faded into a steady, rhythmic hum, like the beating of a heart. And somewhere deep inside, she felt the faintest warmth of something she hadn't felt in years. Not victory, not pride, just quiet. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that finally lets you breathe. As the helicopter carried her away from the Kiegas highlands, her voice, calm, detached, almost a whisper, seemed to echo in the wind. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The mountains swallowed the sound. And for the first time in a long time, Anna Petrova didn't need to be heard. She had already been understood. The helicopter carried her north, slicing through morning mist and silence. Below, the Kiegas highlands stretched endlessly, a wilderness of stone and shadow, indifferent to everything that had happened. The compound was already a fading dot, disappearing behind the rise of the mountains. Anna sat near the rear door, headset on, eyes fixed on the horizon. The crew didn't speak to her. Maybe they'd been told not to. Maybe they just didn't know what to say. She didn't need words. Not yet. The rhythmic thump of the rotors became her heartbeat, steady, heavy, almost soothing. Every time she closed her eyes, the sound blurred into memories. The smell of CO2, the feel of cold steel against her fingers, the weight of the knife in her hand, the silence after the kill. Some people remembered faces. Anna remembered the weight of moments, what her hands were doing when the world tried to end. She leaned her head back, exhaling slow. The mountains below gave way to valleys, then to the cracked scars of old battlefields. She recognized the shapes, burned-out tanks, forgotten trenches, the ghosts of men who had thought they were immortal. How many times had she flown away like this? Too many. How many times had she looked out at a world that didn't know her name, and didn't need to? Every time. The pilot's voice crackled in her headset. Touchdown in 20. Geneva transport waiting at Outpost Delta. You need anything before we drop. Just altitude, Anna said. He chuckled softly. Copy that. Then the channel went quiet again. Her reflection stared back at her from the window, gray eyes, lines of fatigue, the faint shadow of a tattoo just visible where the collar didn't reach. The trident, the mark that had defined and destroyed her in equal measure. She used to think it meant belonging. Then she learned it meant isolation, a higher standard, a lonelier height. Because once people found out what she was, what she'd done, they stopped seeing her as human. They saw the myth, the outlier, the impossible. And myths don't get to rest. The chopper landed at a NATO logistics hub perched on the edge of a salt flat. Concrete walls, sand-colored vehicles, and the smell of oil. Anna stepped off, duffel slung over her shoulder. The wind here was warmer but emptier. A young officer approached, barely out of his 20s, uniform crisp, salute perfect. "Commander Petrova, ma'am, we've been expecting you." She winced slightly. "Don't call me that." "Yes, ma'am, I mean sorry, Miss Petrova." He handed her a tablet. "Corporate requested your preliminary debrief within the hour. You'll be flown to Geneva after refuel." Anna took the tablet but didn't turn it on. "And the survivors?" "Lieutenant Thorne's men, being treated, 3 wounded minor, the rest stable." She nodded, expression unreadable. "Do they know?" he asked carefully. "Know what?" The officer hesitated. "Who you are." Anna's gaze lifted, calm but sharp enough to make him look away. "They know enough." She walked past him toward the hangar, boots tapping quietly against the concrete. Inside, the air was cool, smelling of metal and jet fuel. A single light flickered above a folding table, the temporary debrief station. A camera, a recorder, a formality. She sat. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. The officer stood awkwardly at the door. "Do you want me to start the recording?" Anna's eyes stayed on the blank wall ahead. "No, I'll talk when I'm ready." He nodded, stepping out. When she was finally alone, she set the tablet down and exhaled, long, tired, hollow. And then the memories began. It always started the same way. Cold water. The Pacific. Night. Her body shaking under the endless weight of it. The sound of instructors yelling somewhere far away. The roar of waves breaking over her head. Hell Week. The thing that broke most men. The thing that defined the rest. She remembered the cold, how it stopped feeling like pain after a while, how it turned into something worse, numbness. And how the moment she'd wanted to quit, a voice inside whispered, "Not yet." She hadn't known where it came from then. Now she did. It was the part of her that didn't care about comfort or fear, only completion. She remembered emerging from the water, skin blue, eyes burning, and seeing the instructors, faces shift from disbelief to quiet respect. No one said congratulations. No one said you made it. They just nodded once. And in that nod, everything changed. She'd become the thing the world said she couldn't be. The first, the only, and the loneliest. The debrief screen flickered to life, snapping her back to the present. A corporate representative appeared, gray suit, clean office, sterile smile. "Miss Petrova," he said, voice smooth, cold. "We received the after-action report from Commander Thorne. Impressive work. Casualties minimized. Data secure. The client is satisfied." She didn't respond. He continued, eyes flicking across some unseen file. "However, there are concerns about your methods. You exceeded operational authority, disobeyed direct orders." Anna's tone was flat. "If I hadn't, you'd have no report to read." A pause. He forced a polite smile. "Yes. Still, our legal department requires clarity. Are you aware that your tactical intervention violated corporate protocol?" She closed the tablet. The screen went black. The voice cut off mid-sentence. The silence returned. She sat there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the dark glass. What did she expect? Applause, understanding. No, that world had never been built for her, and she'd stopped expecting it long ago. That night they gave her a room, plain walls, one bed, no windows. She didn't sleep. Sleep meant dreams, and dreams meant remembering the things she'd trained herself to forget. Instead, she sat by the small desk, cleaning her weapon by lamplight. Her hands moved with the same steady rhythm as before: wipe, oil, assemble, breathe. Each motion a way to stay here, in this moment, not there. Somewhere between the clicks and the silence, she whispered something under her breath. Not words, just names. Names that didn't exist on any file. The ones who didn't make it. You don't mourn in her world, you memorize. You carry. Because if you stop remembering, you start feeling. And feeling gets you killed. Hours later, a soft knock came at the door. Anna didn't move. It's open. The door creaked and Marcus Thorne stepped inside. Clean uniform now, bandaged shoulder, but the same weight in his eyes. "I thought you'd be gone," he said. "Almost." He hesitated. "They asked me to convince you to stay for the board's commendation, official recognition, medal, publicity." She smirked faintly. "They don't give medals to ghosts." He studied her. "You ever get tired of pretending you don't care?" Anna looked at him. "You ever get tired of realizing you were wrong?" He smiled, tired, genuine, fair. He stepped closer, the sound of his boots echoing softly. "You changed something out there. My men, they see things differently now. You should see that for yourself." "I didn't change them," she said. "They just saw reality." Thorne nodded slowly. "You know, I used to think strength was loud, orders, control. Then you walked in, said almost nothing, and everyone followed." Anna leaned back, eyes distant. "Loud strength dies fast, quiet strength lasts." He didn't argue. He just stood there for a while, studying her, the way her posture never fully relaxed, the way her eyes always tracked the door, the way her fingers never stopped moving, even when idle. Finally he asked, "What happens now?" Anna looked down at her hands, the same hands that had built, broken, saved, and ended. "Now," she gave a faint, almost imperceptible smile, "now I vanish again." He frowned. "Where?" She shrugged. "Wherever the silence is." Thorne sighed, nodding. "I don't think the silence scares you." "It doesn't," she said, "but it remembers." He understood, and he didn't try to stop her. He left her alone again, the door closing softly behind him. When morning came, the world outside was washed in pale light. A cargo plane waited on the runway, engines idling. The transport to Geneva, the end of the mission, the start of forgetting. Anna walked toward it with her duffel slung over one shoulder. No escort, no ceremony. As she passed the hangar mirror, she caught her reflection again. For a moment she stopped. The trident gleamed faintly under her collar. She touched it, fingertips brushing the ink like an old scar. The symbol that had once meant belonging, then exile, and now something else. Not power, not legend, just memory. The memory of everything it had cost. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "You never stopped being what you were, you just learned to carry it quieter." Then she boarded the plane. The engines roared to life, the sky opened. And the story of Anna Petrova, the woman they laughed at, the woman they underestimated, the one who didn't need their approval, disappeared into the clouds. But her silence stayed behind. The kind that lingers, the kind that teaches. Because sometimes, the greatest echo isn't in the shot fired. It's in the moment after. The engines hummed steady as the plane climbed higher through cloud and sunlight. From her seat near the window, Anna watched the world fall away, mountains fading into mist, rivers cutting silver paths through a land that had seen too much war to still be called beautiful. Every altitude brought silence. Every silence brought memory. She closed her eyes, and the hum of the engines became something else. The sound of rain, boots on mud, a heartbeat echoing through water. It pulled her backward, to the place where her name still meant something. It was a jungle, not mountains, not concrete, not snow, just heat and wet air and 1,000 sounds that could kill you. They'd called it Operation Lantern, officially. Unofficially, no one called it anything. SEAL Team 9, 12 people who'd trained together, bled together, joked about the world ending over bad instant coffee. Anna had been the newest, the quiet one, the one they didn't quite know what to do with. Some didn't even want her there. But when the mission came, a hostage extraction in the deep borderlands, a mess of politics and insurgents, no one questioned anymore. They moved as one, silent, perfect. Until the night it fell apart. The sound of rain hitting metal, the scent of diesel and rot. Her radio crackled once, then died. And somewhere beyond the trees, a light. Wrong color, wrong timing. She remembered yelling something, maybe a warning. Then the blast. It wasn't cinematic. There was no slow motion, just force, heat, the world tearing in half. When she woke, it was silent except for fire and the rain hissing against it. Half the team gone, the other half dying slow. And in the middle of it, the man who had trained her, Captain Hale. He was pinned under the wreckage, breathing shallow, face gray. She crawled to him, every inch of her body screaming. His voice was barely there. "You move, Petrova, you finish the job." She shook her head. "We're not done, I can." He gripped her wrist, weak but certain. "You finish, that's your job." Her throat burned. "And you?" He tried to smile, failed. "Mine's done." Then the light went out of his eyes. And the silence came. The kind that doesn't leave. The kind that becomes part of you. She carried him out anyway, for 3 miles, through rain and mud and blood that wasn't just his. When extraction came, she didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't even stand. She just sat on the floor of the chopper, holding the tags in her hand, staring at the nothing between breaths. That night she earned a commendation. And the next day, she handed in her resignation. No one understood why. But how could they? They still believed war was about winning. She had learned the truth. It was about carrying. And some weights couldn't be put down. The engines roared, snapping her back to the present. She opened her eyes. The clouds were gone, replaced by endless blue. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small piece of metal, tarnished, bent. Hale's dog tag. The only one she'd never let go. She turned it over between her fingers, tracing the letters. He used to tell her that the mark of a good soldier was how hard they fought. It was how quietly they accepted what they couldn't change. At the time, she hadn't understood. Now she did. You can survive anything if you don't expect it to make sense. The plane landed at Geneva base hours later. A clean, efficient world, white walls, bright lights, people who smelled of cologne and control. She hated it instantly. The debrief room was glass and chrome, overlooking the Alps. On the table, water, a folder, and a single line of text on the screen. Psychological clearance pending. She almost laughed. As if you could clear something like this. A psychologist entered, middle-aged, gentle eyes, clipboard in hand. "Miss Petrova," he greeted softly, "I've read your file, extraordinary service record, and quite a story from Kyrgyz." She didn't respond. He sat across from her, folding his hands. "I'm supposed to assess your mental readiness for redeployment." "I'm not being redeployed," Anna said. He smiled slightly. "Everyone says that, until the phone rings again." She met his gaze, calm, unblinking. "The phone stopped ringing a long time ago. They just don't know it yet." He studied her. "You don't believe in closure, do you?" "Closure's for people who can afford to forget." He nodded slowly. "And you can't." She looked out the window, snow on the peaks, sunlight glinting off ice. If I forget, they die twice. The psychologist was silent for a moment. You talk like someone who's still in the field. She turned back to him. Maybe I am just a different field. He wrote something down. You don't sleep much. She smirked faintly. Sleeping, overrated, you miss too much. He smiled, not unkindly. You know, there's a thin line between control and avoidance. Anna leaned back in the chair. There's no line at all, just choices. The man set his pen down. Then tell me this, why did you go to Kiegas? No command, no obligation, just a mercenary contract. Why? Her answer came slow, deliberate. Because I needed to remember who I was, and what I was. He frowned slightly. And what aren't you, Miss Petrova? She looked right at him, a ghost that forgets who she used to be. He studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. I think I understand. But he didn't. Not really. No one ever did. Later, they gave her clearance on paper. In reality, they just wanted her gone. The corporation paid her double, offered contracts, operations, leadership positions. She said no to all of it. Then she disappeared again. For months, no one heard a word. Rumors started that she joined a covert humanitarian unit in Africa, that she was training local militias, that she was living somewhere in the mountains, teaching children how to track. None of it confirmed. None of it denied. And that's how she liked it. Because freedom isn't about escape, it's about silence. And she'd earned hers. One evening, weeks later, a message reached Thorne through a secure channel, encrypted, unsigned. A single line of text. The mountain sleeps, keep your men sharp. No name, no signal trace. But he knew who it was. He read it twice, then smiled, the kind of smile that comes when you realize you've met someone the world doesn't make anymore. He forwarded it to his men. They all knew. And somewhere, in a nameless place far from noise and medals and orders, Anna Petrova sat by a dying campfire, staring into the flames. Her rifle rested beside her. The mountains stretched endless and empty beyond. The wind moved softly, tugging at her hair. She took out Hale's tag again, held it up to the firelight, and whispered something only she could hear. Still carrying. Then she smiled just a little. Not joy, not pain. Something quieter. The kind of peace you don't earn through victory. You earn it through endurance. The flames flickered, reflected in her eyes. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt deserved. In the end, she wasn't the hero they told stories about. She wasn't the headline or the medal. She was the pause between, the invisible breath before things went wrong, and the hand that made sure someone still got home. That's what real strength is. Not power, not fearlessness. It's the quiet promise that no matter how bad it gets, someone will still act. Even when no one's watching. Especially then. The mountains were silent that morning. Mist clung to the valley, soft and pale, wrapping the world in a kind of stillness that felt earned. The kind that comes after storms, after noise, after everything worth fighting has already burned. Anna woke before the sun, as always. The habit never left. The body remembered even when the mind tried to forget. She sat up in her small tent, rubbed the sleep from her eyes and listened. A river in the distance, wind brushing over stone, the faint rhythm of life returning. Her rifle lay beside her bedroll, cleaned, oiled, ready. It always was. She didn't reach for it. Instead, she poured a cup of water from a battered canteen, the metal cool in her hands. The first sip tasted of iron and memory. Outside, the horizon was beginning to glow, a thin scar of gold cutting through the mist. It had been weeks since she'd seen another person, months maybe. That was the point. Out here there were no briefings, no orders, No questions about what she used to be, just the endless company of silence. And for a while it was enough. Until the radio crackled. It was faint static, broken by distance and time, but the sound hit her like a forgotten heartbeat. She froze. The small field radio she'd kept buried under a tarp, emergency use only, was alive again. A distorted voice cut through. Anyone copy. This is Outpost Marin under attack. Coordinates repeat under attack. Then static. Then silence. Anna stared at the radio for a long moment. Her hand hovered over the dial. Then she switched it off. She sat there in the quiet, eyes closed, breathing slow. Her mind whispered the same thing it always did when the past came calling. Not your fight. She had walked away. She had earned her peace. But peace doesn't last for people like her. It just waits. That night she tried to ignore it. She lit a small fire, cooked something simple, stared at the stars until her eyes blurred. But the voice wouldn't leave her. Under attack. Coordinates. Her hand tightened around the mug. She remembered the way Hale used to look at her during missions, the unspoken question in his eyes. What will you do when it's not your duty, but your choice? She'd never answered back then. Now she knew why. Because some questions only matter when there's no one left to ask them. At dawn she packed. No hesitation this time, no speech, just quiet, efficient movement. She rolled her gear, slung her rifle, and buried the campfire under a mound of earth until the smoke disappeared. Then she stood for a moment, looking back at the tent, the little piece of stillness she'd built for herself. It looked small now, fragile. She whispered softly, "Thank you," and turned away. Outpost Marin was 200 miles east, a forgotten UN research hub along a disputed border. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, it was a test site, data collection, environmental studies, maybe weapons analysis. She didn't care about the reason, only the voices. People still breathing, still calling for help. She walked for 2 days. No vehicles, no trails, just open terrain and instinct. The weather turned rough sleet, then wind. She kept moving. By the second night, the radio went dead again. No signals, no coordinates, just static. That's when she knew it was bad. Real bad. On the morning of the third day, she reached the ridge overlooking the valley where Marin was supposed to be. What she saw made her stomach tighten. Smoke. Thick, black, rising from what was left of the outpost. The main structure had been hit by explosives, precision strikes, not random shelling. Whoever had done this knew exactly what they were targeting. She dropped to her stomach, pulled out her scope and scanned. Movement. 3 figures in tactical gear, rifles slung, sweeping the perimeter. Their movements were practiced, too smooth for local raiders. Mercenaries. She watched them drag something, or someone, toward a vehicle. Her jaw tightened. She could walk away, pretend she hadn't seen it. She told herself she was done saving people who didn't want to be saved. But then she saw the patch on one of the uniforms. Blue circle, white letters. UN Science Division. Civilians. She exhaled slowly. The decision made itself. Anna pulled the bolt on her rifle, checked the chamber, and whispered under her breath, "You always find me first." Then she moved. The first shot came from the ridge, precise, silent. One mercenary dropped before the others realized what was happening. The second turned, searching for the shooter, but found only the wind. By the time he pointed his rifle, Anna was already gone. She moved like a ghost, firing, relocating, firing again. Controlled, calculated. When it was over, the valley fell silent again. 3 bodies lay in the dust. Anna approached the vehicle slowly, weapon raised. Inside, 2 scientists, one conscious, the other bleeding but alive. Their eyes widened when they saw her. "Who are you?" one of them stammered. "No one," Anna said. "Can you move?" They nodded weakly. She pulled them out, checked for wounds, stabilized what she could. The younger one, a woman maybe 30, kept staring at her, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "You came for us." Anna shook her head. "I heard the signal." The woman tried to smile. "You're military." "Was." Anna's voice was quiet. "Who attacked you?" The woman hesitated. "They said they were protection contractors, but they took samples, data drives, Her words broke off into a cough. Anna didn't press. She'd heard enough. She looked at the burning outpost, the cracked concrete, the shattered windows. Then at the sky, already gray again. This wasn't random. Someone wanted whatever was inside that lab. And they were willing to kill for it. By nightfall, she had moved the survivors to a sheltered cave system nearby. She built a fire, cleaned their wounds, listened as the wind howled outside. The woman, Dr. Lian, according to her ID, sat beside her, shivering under a blanket. "You saved us," she whispered. Anna didn't answer. "You don't even know us. Why would you risk?" Anna cut her off softly, "Because someone should." The fire crackled. Shadows danced against the stone walls. Dr. Lian studied her face. "You're one of them, aren't you? I saw the mark." Anna didn't look up. "The trident," the doctor said quietly. "Seals. The story said no woman ever." "Stories are usually written by men," Anna said, almost smiling. Dr. Lian exhaled, eyes shining in the dim light. "Then it's true." Anna didn't confirm or deny. She just stared into the fire, voice soft. "Truth doesn't matter. What you do with it does." The words hung there, heavy, final. Outside, the wind shifted. Anna's instincts flared. She stood, rifle in hand, eyes narrowing toward the mouth of the cave. A sound, faint, crunch of gravel. She motioned for silence. Then she stepped into the dark. The night was black, moonless, the kind that swallows everything. Anna crouched behind a boulder, eyes adjusting to the dark. Another sound, soft, a footstep. She waited, breath steady. Then a voice, low, unfamiliar. "Petrova." Her pulse slowed. No one should have known that name. Not here, not now. "Who are you?" she called quietly, finger resting on the trigger. A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall, armored, face hidden beneath a tactical mask. "You don't remember me," the voice said, "but I remember you." Anna didn't move. "That's unfortunate for both of us." The figure chuckled softly. "You killed my team at Kiegas." Her eyes narrowed. He stepped closer. "They were just contractors like you, but you couldn't resist, could you? Always the savior." "Who sent you?" He tilted his head. "Same people who hired you once. You just didn't read the fine print." Anna's stomach sank. He continued, "You think you walked away, but they never stop owning you." The words cut deeper than any bullet. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the wind shifted again, and Anna fired. The man ducked behind a rock, returning fire. The night erupted in flashes of light and echoes of thunder. She rolled, repositioned, fired again, every movement precise, instinctual. It wasn't rage, it wasn't revenge. It was muscle memory. Survive, advance, end it. When the gunfire stopped, only the wind remained. Anna approached slowly. The mercenary lay bleeding, mask cracked. She crouched beside him. "Who are they?" He smiled, blood on his teeth. "The same ghosts who built you." Then he stopped breathing. Anna stared at him for a long time, the wind tugging at her jacket, her hair. And for the first time in years, she felt something close to fear. Not of dying, of understanding. Because maybe he was right. Maybe she hadn't escaped anything at all. Maybe the silence she'd found wasn't freedom, just another mission she hadn't realized she was still on. Back inside the cave, the fire burned low. Dr. Lian looked up as Anna entered. What happened? Anna wiped the blood from her face with the back of her hand. We're leaving at dawn. Why, who were they? Anna's eyes darkened. People who don't like unfinished stories. The doctor frowned. And what are you going to do? Anna looked toward the mouth of the cave, where the first light of morning was starting to touch the horizon. What I always do, she said quietly. Finish it. Dawn arrived like an apology. A thin gray light slipped through the clouds, soft but cold. The valley below was quiet again, but Anna could feel it, the kind of quiet that meant pause, not peace. She finished repacking the little that remained. A canteen. Her rifle. The notebook she'd taken from the mercenary at Kiegas, the one she'd never fully read. She opened it now. Inside were coordinates, numbers scrawled in a hand that wasn't military, engineers, scientists, men who thought precision was protection. The last set of coordinates matched the ones from Dr. Lian's destroyed lab. A name was written beside them. Project Sable. Anna stared at the page for a long time. She'd seen that name once before, years ago, on a sealed briefing she was never meant to open. Classified under Navy Special Operations / Civilian Tech Integration. Now it was back. Still buried under new paperwork, new contractors, new lies. The ghosts that built her had never stopped building. She closed the notebook and slipped it into her pocket. Dr. Lian watched her quietly. You know what that means, don't you? Anna nodded. They never stopped. Then why help us? Why not walk away again? Anna looked at the scientist, the bruises, the blood-streaked hands, the fear that hadn't left her eyes. Because you're still alive, Anna said simply, and that's enough reason. The doctor swallowed, voice trembling. What are you going to do? Anna checked her rifle one last time. What they trained me for, but not how they intended. By midday, they reached an abandoned relay station perched above the valley. Rust, dust, silence. Inside, old computers hummed weakly to life under a portable generator. Dr. Lian began uploading fragments of corrupted data, fingers shaking over the keyboard. Anna stood by the doorway, scanning the ridgeline through her scope. Movement. 2 dots, then 4. They were coming. She exhaled slowly. Time. 10 minutes, maybe less, Lian said. Anna nodded. Send what you can. The doctor hesitated. What about you? Anna's voice was calm. I'll buy you 10 more. When the first shots came, they were clean. Professional. Suppressors whispering death through the wind. Anna returned fire in measured rhythm. 2 shots moved 2 more. The attackers advanced from 3 angles. She counted them without thinking. 6 total. Trained. Efficient. Corporate black ops, probably the same branch that had burned Kiegas and Marin. She felt no anger. Only familiarity. This was the world she came from, the one that had no loyalty, only ownership. Bullets struck the walls, spraying dust across her face. She dropped low, switched magazines, and kept firing. Inside, the doctor shouted over the gunfire, transmission at 73%. Anna smiled faintly, make it 100. Minutes blurred into seconds. The fight became a rhythm, breathe, shoot, move, reload. She took one in the shoulder, ignored the pain, pressed forward. A grenade clattered near the doorway. She kicked it back before it could settle. The explosion rocked the valley, shattering glass, scattering birds into the sky. By the time the smoke cleared, only one of them was still moving. Anna stepped through the haze, rifle raised. The mercenary dropped his weapon, panting. You don't even know who you're fighting for, he spat. Anna's voice was steady. Neither do you. He laughed, a dry, broken sound. They'll just send more. She lowered her weapon slightly. Then I'll keep finishing. His smile faded. He reached for a sidearm, and she ended it before he could breathe again. Silence returned. Real silence this time. Not the absence of sound, the end of it. She staggered back into the relay room, shoulder bleeding. Dr. Lian looked up terrified. You're hit. It's nothing. Transmission. Complete, the doctor said, voice shaking. It's in the open net now. Every secure channel, every watchdog agency. They can't bury it anymore. Anna nodded, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. Good. She reached for her pack. There's a safe route north, take it, someone will find you. The doctor frowned. You're coming too, right? Anna didn't answer. Her silence was enough. Lian's eyes welled. You can't keep doing this. You're not responsible for. Anna cut her off softly. I'm not staying because I'm responsible. I'm staying because I'm free. The words confused her. Free. Anna looked at her, eyes calm and infinite. They trained me to disappear, to obey, to end things quietly. But they never understood that silence doesn't mean surrender. Dr. Lian stared at her, realizing what she meant. You'll die here. Anna smiled faintly. Maybe, but someone will live there. She nodded toward the horizon, the line where smoke met sunlight. Go. Dr. Lian hesitated, tears cutting lines through the dirt on her face. Then she turned and ran. Anna watched until she vanished into the rocks. Then she sat down against the wall, breathing shallow. The bleeding wouldn't stop now. She knew that. She pulled out Hale's tag again, tracing the letters with her thumb. You were right, she whispered. You always finish. Hours passed. The sun began to set, painting the valley red and gold. The wind carried dust across the ruins, soft and steady. Anna sat there, back against the stone, rifle resting across her knees. Every breath was slower than the last. She could still hear the hum of the generator, weak, but alive. The last sound of the world she just saved from its own shadows. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't remind her of loss. It reminded her of peace. 2 days later, a rescue team arrived at the ruins of Outpost Marin. They found Dr. Lian alive, dehydrated but safe. They found the data upload in the global archive, Project Sable exposed, the corporate network under investigation. And they found Anna Petrova's rifle cleaned, unloaded, resting neatly beside a folded jacket. No body. Just tracks leading east. Then nothing. Some said she died there. Some said she walked into the mountains and never came down. Others swore they'd seen her in border towns, a quiet woman fixing radios, teaching local kids how to aim, vanishing before anyone could thank her. No one knew for sure. But every few months, a coded transmission appeared on old military frequencies, short, unsigned, always the same words. Still carrying. Years passed. The world kept moving. New wars, new names, same mistakes. But for those who'd met her Thorn, Rhino, Deacon, Lian, her silence remained a compass. When things got dark, they'd remember the woman who had walked through hell and never asked for a medal. The woman who acted when others hesitated. The one who taught them that strength isn't in shouting or commanding or winning. It's in standing when no one else will. It's in doing the right thing quietly. And in the quiet, her legend grew. No headlines, no statues. Just a story whispered among soldiers, mercenaries, pilots. A story that began with laughter and ended with respect. Somewhere, maybe in another mountain range, maybe across an ocean, a woman sat beside a small fire, wind tugging at her hair. She was older now, fewer scars showing, more inside. her hand still steady, her eyes still searching. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the same tarnished tag, and smiled. The stars above her were bright tonight, the same ones she used to stare at from training decks, from war zones, from quiet rooms she was never supposed to survive. The same stars that had watched her carry the weight of ghosts and still keep walking. She whispered softly, as if speaking to them. Peace doesn't come to those who fight for it. It comes to those who refuse to stop. The fire cracked, the wind answered. And somewhere in that endless silence, the world felt a little lighter.